It's been a great week. I go back to 97. I was 26 years old. I can remember working on the radio board in Ann Arbor, and Doug Karsh, who was doing the play-by-play for the championship game. He was in Pasadena, and I was running the board. He put the headset on Ryan Leaf, and there was huge feedback. And it was like, "Meow," but Leaf was, was really nice about it and everything else. But, that was a great day. And somewhere over the next few years, I said, if Michigan just could win one more, that would be all I would ask for in my life. I know a lot of Lion fans, and I know that's appropriate right now talking about that. They've been saying that for years. They just want to see it for their dad or their uncle or themselves or whatever before they die. They say things like that. And, this time around, I'm married. And so I wanted to be able to share that with my wife and my family. And I was watching, my daughter was watching the game with me. I'm so happy for all the Michigan fans. It's so hard to do. It really is. I don't want it to be just a once in a lifetime thing. I would like to see them win others, but it might not be. It's one of those things. Like, heck, a couple days ago, I was talking about a dynasty and Harbaugh and McCarthy coming back, and that was real. And that might not be so real as we sit here and talk about that today. So, soaking it in, just real appreciative of everybody out there that likes Michigan and knows how to enjoy it. I went down to that parade. I was not thinking that I was going to go to that parade, John. I was looking at the temperature. They're talking about this cold Arctic
negative wind chill.
Yeah, I don't mind actually the cold. I hate the wind chill. I don't know anybody that likes the wind chill, but when they're talking about it being -0, I was thinking, I don't know. Do I really just want to go stand down on the street there? But, my wife and my daughter wanted to go, and I did. And, so that was a good time, though, going down there. I bundled up and, seeing the team go down State Street. It felt like, being at a game, after coming home. And I knew, my daughter, she said, I might not ever, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, you probably will remember that for the rest of your life. Hopefully you get a chance to go to some more parades and everything else. But out of my lifetime, think about it, the Tigers, they're just a freshman in high school. You probably weren't even born yet. But then, I had the Pistons win 3 championships, and all those are very special. The Red Wings won so many, and it was so awesome, but it's been a while since, they're pretty good this year, but you don't get that many. And of course, the Michigan basketball team in 89, they've been to a finals, I think 4 times since then, but that's been it. So Michigan, this football team, hopefully they're able to get back, and they might. What's going to happen in the next couple minutes, maybe, is going to go a long way in deciding maybe how soon that they might be able to get back and challenge for it. So, that's where things are at right now on this. What do we have? It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah. And I've told everybody, soak this in, because, so many people are about to leave the program. People are going to come in from the transfer portal as well. You're going to see freshmen take their first snaps as a starter, and it's going to look different. No matter what happens, it's going to look different. So soak it in. Michigan won an undisputed national championship, period. And enjoy it however you feel. Unfortunately, I was saddled with tonsillitis. Literally, that happened like right after Michigan beats Alabama. So of course, I'm doing all my media hits for that week, and I've got the cough drops and the tea and everything going. I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself be down for the count on this. Like, what? How many times does Michigan win the Natty? So it's been an interesting couple weeks, but it happened, and Harbaugh held up that trophy. JJ McCarthy tossed the trophy, and luckily he was able to toss it to Sandra still. And I believe that's like a $300,000 trophy. So I'm glad he was able to successfully execute one final catch for Michigan. Players coming, transferring, staying. The next segment in our Aftermath series, right? Who's going, who's staying? And of course, we had a heartfelt letter from JJ McCarthy, who I think, look, JJ McCarthy said when he was recruited here, he said he was going to do everything he could to beat Ohio State. He said he was going to do everything he could to win a Big Ten championship, and he was going to do everything he could to win a national championship. And he did all those things. So as far as I'm concerned, go be great. Go to the pros, get your bag. Hopefully you go first round, and not everyone here will get first round, but I think a decent amount will go early. Blake Corum and Keegan especially. Someone's going to need some good linemen, in the NFL. So Keegan and Zinner, I think, are gonna do very well. But it is quite a few. But we knew that. We knew, Dennis, when this season was happening, that we were going to have a lot of people in their last year, and that's why we did the One More Year Fund. We called it the Last Dance here on Michigan Wolverines Live. And so now it's happening. People are going pro. And so whether it's JJ or some of these others, I mean, is this kind of what you expected? What's your thoughts? Because I know JJ was that was the one that people were kind of on the fence about. Most of these makes a lot of sense. But we thought maybe JJ might come back. So.
I was holding out a little bit of hope that Michigan, when it came to name, image, and likeness, they made a decision that they weren't getting in on the front end, which is illegal to promise players money, by the way, to come on in. But they were going to get in on the back end, and they were going to reward players for staying at Michigan. You talked about the one more year fund last year. And I don't know how much was going to be enough to keep guys like Trente Jones, to keep Junior Colson, Jalen Harrell, Braden McGregor. But I was thinking that those guys might have been able to have, hey, what about one more year or whatever that they were going to come up with. There had to be a number there. So not that it's really disappointing. I wanted to see if that was going to be able to happen, because that was Michigan's plan. But what has changed, of course, is the national championship. And that changes my thoughts on everything, and I think it changed a lot for these guys as well. Anybody that was thinking about, hey, I could come back, maybe I could make more money even at Michigan than going pro. But hey, I just won a championship. So, I think that when that happens, you just say, this is, one of the greatest years ever, not the greatest year of Michigan football. And you wish everybody luck, and, and you move on. I mean, that's the thing with those guys. Like I said, there was a few that you could go in there, and it was going to be interesting to see if Michigan was going to be able to retain them, but they have not. It's like all of this, like, does it hurt recruiting that Harbaugh's out doing this, what he's doing with the NFL, which he's done for the last few years? It doesn't help, that's for sure, but they won the championship. And if Michigan didn't win the championship and this was the boat they were in, and we were sitting around having to, I don't know if it would be selling it or not, but I guess it would be like, hey, let's say they lost to Alabama. But, they beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. They won the Big Ten 3 years in a row. They've got that Big Ten championship ring. They made it to the college football playoff. This was the year that they talked about, taking that next step. And then, of course, they took 2 more steps, and finishing it off, and they did it. So it's storybook. So all of that, I don't know. What was your question? Is this what we expected? I don't know. I was expecting them to win a national championship, but I know how difficult it is. And those 2 games against Washington, the pressure cooker, even though Michigan went at 34-13, it was still a pressure cooker in that game. And obviously, coming down in overtime and beating Alabama 27-20, those games live on, forever in our memories. And those 2 games, when I look at any of the players that could have been coming back, or, hey, even JJ McCarthy, I'll just keep looking to the Rose Bowl, and I'll keep looking to NRG Stadium on January the 8th. And that'll be my reminder of why Michigan's in the spot that they are. And I'll take it every single time.
Absolutely. And Dependent Fanatic is mentioning we need an every year fund. So there is a campaign going on right now called the Those Who Stay NIL campaign with Champion Circle. It has cracked officially 703,000 $14. So they're officially 70% towards their $1 million goal in terms of fundraising. So that's not including the donor money. That's also part of what they're trying to do to keep players at the university. So,
well, the one thing about, sorry to jump in there on you, but
that's fine,
John, the whole NIL thing, for Michigan, it has been an interesting couple of days. Yesterday, the Fab Five, for the first time since they actually played at Michigan together, were in the basketball arena for the first time because of, we all know of what went on and everything else there.
Mm-hmm.
Since that, those were, the ensuing years were really dark days for Michigan and for a lot of Michigan fans, certainly the alums. They said, we're never going to have anything like this again. Now, everything has changed when it comes down to money in players. But my point here is that Michigan fans and alums were told, no, we're never giving any money. We're not paying the players. And, and Michigan has been, I don't know if they're the only one, they certainly seem like they are, one of the only of the top 25 teams that are like, no, we are not playing we're promising you money. So what that has done, I think you build that culture of, no, we're not doing it this way. I don't think people are used to opening up their wallets and saying, wait a second, this doesn't even feel right. And nothing against Ohio State, they love it. You got a couple of Ohio State fans that are watching this, but certainly every Georgia fan, all the teams in the SEC for years, they were saying, give Jalen money, give his dad money,
sure.
give Braden's mom a bag full of cash, give Michael Barrett, give these guys, pastors, suitcases of cash, and everybody's they're used to it. Give them a car, give them a house, give them a loan, give them everything, and everybody's kind of used to it. Michigan, we're not used to all of that, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed on that.
Yeah, I do think that our approach, which I think there's merit to, it is just that Michigan's not going to give a 17-year-old who hasn't proven anything on the college field, $2 million and accommodations for their family and work accommodations and all this stuff like allegedly Bryce Underwood received at LSU. There's talk of that being a $5 million, $7 million package all in with all the perks, whatever it wound up actually being. Good for them, good for him, good for his family. In a year, if he doesn't make it as a starter, guess what? He's going to be in the transfer portal, and maybe Michigan picks him up if they need a quarterback. Maybe someone else picks him up. So I think the only exception I would say would be a player like that. Like if someone is just such a lights out player that it's obvious. Like I think Jaden Davis got something. I can't prove it, but I think he got a car. I think he got something. But we just don't give bags and we don't give sponsorship, and that's just how Michigan's been. And I think that's where they're going to draw the line. Afterwards, once you've proven it on the field, Blake Corum is a 7-figure NIL valuation. They're getting NIL. Everybody who was kind of part of the team for a couple of years. So I think there's merit to that.
Yeah, the flip side, which isn't nice to think about, is that if this started 2 or 3 years ago, Michigan wouldn't have gotten J.J. McCarthy or Blake Corum because those guys would have gone somewhere else for the money. And, the two guys, you think that you make, except you're talking about, and maybe they did, say, hey, Jaden, we might not, throw you a 7-figure deal, but here's a car. Sure, that might have happened. But when you have guys that are in your own backyard, like the last 2 quarterbacks, Dante Moore, Detroit, and Bryce Underwood's, stone's throw down the street. I mean, those are guys that it really hurts, where you feel it with NIL. And that's where I go back to 97 again, because, the honeymoon lasted, it was great all summer and everything else. Michigan's the champ. But then they came out and they got blasted. And lost by like 20 points, 16, 20 points to Notre Dame. And then they got beat by 20 at home to Syracuse, went 0-2 to start out the season. I can remember being on the radio. The honeymoon's over. And yet they had the number 1 recruiting class. Drew Henson from down the street in Brighton was they call them 5-star quarterbacks, but he was a USA. I guess he was the punter that made the first. But Michigan had the #1 recruiting class, so you had that, even though they started 0-2 and the honeymoon was over, and and Michigan doesn't have that part right now. But I'm not telling everybody that the honeymoon should be over. I'm telling you the exact opposite. The party is still going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gonna depend on a lot. I mean, this is gonna continue to evolve. Eventually, I think you're probably gonna see a semi-pro situation where players get paid directly by the university. You'll have salary caps just like in the NFL. It's coming, especially since the SEC and the Big Ten are gaining more and more power as super conferences, and the NCAA dwindles in power. I think we're eventually headed to a semi-pro, and then it'll at least be formalized and in public and in writing, like what these contracts are and how much the signing bonus is and how much the base is and what the incentives are. That's how it should be. I can't stand this like in the shadows. We don't know what these people are getting. It's all rumors. We see a couple of NIL contracts like the Jalen Rashada contract for like $12 million for the Gator Collective. We saw stuff like that, but I actually at this point, if we're gonna be paying everybody, you might as well formalize it and like make it transparent, and then Michigan will get to do the same and actually pay everybody. And Michigan's got $20 billion endowment, so I think they're gonna benefit pretty well under a semi-pro system.
Yeah, I know those endowments. People always tell me they're earmarked specifically for things, but your point, Michigan's got a lot of alums, and if they generate over $200 million a year, they're up there with anybody. So if they can actually pay players and compete in that regard, then they can compete with anybody in terms of throwing the money around. Right now, you're just not supposed to, tell them that they're getting that money up front, even though everybody's doing it. And even Ohio State, which is a bigger to your fans that are in there that are wanting to run out the, you guys are cheaters. You guys are bigger cheaters, and you didn't win anything. So, try something else than paying players, which is a level 1 violation. Try to work those bylaws like Harbaugh and company were. Go to those gray areas. But you know what? Here's the catch. There can be something where you end up getting tripped up and then people freak out in season and get all over you, or just stay blatantly committing level 1 violations. Whatever. You guys take the choice. Whatever makes you feel good.
Well, FSU did get hit. So someone finally got hit for NIL, because I think a staffer was driving a recruit to some type of donation event or whatever. It was something that was like another layer than just like sliding people bags under the table or doing sponsorship deals, that are adjacent to the university. So it shows that people can get hit with NIL violations. So you can't be so blatant about it.
Stay with the cash under the table. Don't go to something where you pay for with a credit card or they actually can see the funds. Just say, hey, there's a briefcase on the other chair there. There's 200,000 in it. Just take that and don't say anything about it. Or in Underwood's case, you can just say, look, we're the 7 million's coming your way or whatever it is. And just we just have to wait till you get in here. Then it's yours. Here's a little cash, to tide you over on that duffel bag on the way out.
There you go. So staying, and there are quite a few staying, but some of the notable ones that could have gone either way, Donovan Edwards would have to lead that charge. And I think that part of the reason he's coming back, he had an injury and it took him a while to kind of get back, but anybody who was hating on him, he heard that, he harnessed it, and then in the national championship game, all of a sudden, it was like the old Don was back. And he was just running up and down that field for, I think, the second 2 longest runs ever in the national championship game. I think only Derrick Henry had a longer run than Donovan Edwards' two that he had that were the 40-plus yard runs. So congrats on coming back. And he's obviously, I think, going to be RB1 alongside Khalil Mullings, and Ben Hall will probably be a three-headed monster at running back.
Yeah, I hate to pile on Ohio State fans like it seems like I'm doing here tonight, but that's the one that you put up in the chat. I go back to last year when he ran a 75-yarder and an 85-yarder at Columbus and had over 200 yards. And yeah, when he ripped off the 41-yarder and the 46-yarder, went over 100 yards in the national championship game, that's the Donovan Edwards that, I mean, he's an explosive back and you give him an inch and he can take a mile. He's a big-time home run hitter. You know, he had that nice touchdown, I think Michigan's first touchdown against Penn State, you know, in the back half of the season to really get it going. So, yeah, Donovan Edwards is he's an excellent back. You know, he's not Blake Corum. That's, fourth and a one. Might not be the guy that you're looking for. He's got a little bit of Barry Sanders in him while I'm, mixing in the Lions and going back to the yesteryear. You know, Barry would get in there and he'd go for 4 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, 26, 1, -2, 60. That's kind of Donovan Edwards. You got to be patient with him. You got to feed him. And you just got to give him a little bit of daylight because he can hit a home run for you, as we have seen repeatedly. And you said it before we came on. He's a big game player. I mean, on the road at Ohio State, national championship game. Give me a guy like that rather than Donovan Edwards, rolling up for 300 yards against UNLV, 160 against Bowling Green. But when it comes down to Penn State, nothing. When it comes down to Ohio State, nothing. When it comes down to the national championship game, nothing. He comes up big when the lights are the brightest. Those are the kind of guys you want on your team.
Absolutely. Speaking of bright lights and shining the brightest, how about Rod Moore coming back, who got that game-winning interception against the Buckeyes this year? He's coming back, as well as some of these other players. Kenneth Grant is somebody who Moose has been really on since day one, and he's shown up this year in some really big spots. So some of these players coming back, I think, will contribute to having, the offense may need work, but I think the defense, you're looking at a championship level or a playoff, at least a 12-team playoff level defense.
Playoff. Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant on the inside there, Rayshon Benny, whenever he's expected to get back, that trio is going to be as good as anybody in the country when you talk about it. Josiah Stewart coming back and Derek Moore, when it was Jalen Milroe on that 4th down in the Rose Bowl and goal, those were the two edges that were out there for Michigan on the biggest play of the season for the defense. And both of those guys, I think that it's been documented now. You've probably watched that play a few times like I have. Stewart took a 350-pound offensive lineman and threw him into Milroe, and Moore was crashing down and beat his guy. So if Stewart didn't make the play, I think Rod Moore might have been able to get him as well. So, yeah, those two guys right there, you start looking at it, Michigan loses 9 really starters on offense and 7 on defense. But, yeah, McGregor and Harrell. But, yeah, Stewart and Derek Moore, you put them in there, you feel like they were starters. So, maybe you're not feeling like that, they lose that much. And Rod Moore started out the season injured, had that first bad play against Rutgers. But, yeah, he came out in the late in the season. He's a great player. It wouldn't surprise me if he was the captain next year for Michigan, Rod Moore, who was 19 and then switched up to number 9.